Hello viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this episode today, I'll be discussing a very controversial issue that places blacks, that places Africans in Canada in a not so well position when it comes to education, when it comes to job prospect in Canada. I mean, there's systemic racism and nobody's going to deny that. So that's what I'll be telling you about today. Systemic racism that puts blacks, that puts Africa in a not so good position when it comes to looking for job, or even when they even have the job, in terms of their work ethics, promotion at jobs, and other things. That's what I'll be dissecting today. Please hang on tight, stay tuned. I will be back. Okay viewers, so welcome back to my YouTube channel. I still remember my humble self, MC Bernardino. This is Canada Reality, where I dish out content for those that are already in Canada and those that have aspiration to migrate into Canada. Is this your first time on this YouTube channel? Please do me the honor, hit on the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so that anytime I drop a video, you always be among the first to get it. And for our returning viewers, we are not taking you for granted. God bless you, and please don't forget to share our videos with whoever you feel will benefit from it. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of the subject of discuss today. I mean, in Canada, I've said it in tons of my videos. This is a very controversial issue, but we need to talk about it, because if nobody's talking about it, there's no way we expect change to happen if nobody's talking about it. So in this video, I'll be interchangeably using the word blacks, and I'll also be using the word Africans too, because no matter where you come from, as long as you're a black man, you are an African. All right, so Africans, blacks in Canada, they face this systemic racism when it comes to education, when it comes to job prospect. And I'm not just saying this, there are statistical facts that back this up. There are so many reports that have been done by news channels regarding this systemic racism, and that's what I'll be bringing to the front burner today, so that we can look at it together. And also, I welcome your own opinion. Let me know what you feel about this in the comment section. If you have faced it before, let me just know what your opinion is about this in the comment section. So now, before I talk about the job aspect of it, let's talk about the education, because even before you get a job, you need to get an education. So data from Stats Canada shows that the national average for individual with university degree or higher nationally in Canada stands at 32.9%. globally in Canada, nationally rather, in Canada. But when you look at the black community, among the black community, the national average stands at 32.4%. That goes to tell you that among the black community in Canada, there's a high percentage that if a child goes into the university, he or she will come out with a bachelor's degree, or even something higher, master's or PhD. And that means that Africans are actually studying in Canada. Let's go further to dissect these statistics as received from Stats Canada. So for this information is telling that for those that are born in Africa but eventually migrate into Canada, if they go into university in Canada, the percentage of them coming out with a minimum of a bachelor's degree is 42.2%. Now, on the other side, at least one of the parents was born in Africa. Okay, so one of the parents was born in Africa. The percentage is 46.3%. that their child will come out with a bachelor's degree if they study in Canada. So on the other side, the yellow one is talking about Caribbean. So if they are born in Caribbean, the probability that they will get a bachelor's in Canada when they go to university at the least is 19.4%. And if one of the parents is born in Caribbean, but the child attends university in Canada, the possibility that they will finish, that the child will finish the minimum of bachelor's stands at 28.5%. While for the third generation or more, other race, other community, their own percentage is 58.8%, which is low. So what am I trying to bring up from these statistics is that shows that children of African descent, either both parents are from Africa, either the child was born in Africa or one of the parents is from Africa, there's a huge probability that if such immigrant goes to university, if such international student go to university in Canada, there's a high percentage that child will come out with bachelor's degree at the least from that university. There are so many things that could happen. Probably we've seen situations whereby some kids go to school, they drop out from school because of unseriousness or because of whatever factor. But there's always an incentive, there's always the morale. So what can be deduced from this is that African always go to school when they come into Canada. I mean, there's always that competitiveness, there's always that morale booster for them to actually go to school in Canada, and not just to go to school, they always want to succeed. I've seen a situation whereby immigrants come in here as an international student and they're exceeding beyond limits in their classes, because Africa, when you school in Africa, probably your previous study was in Africa or your parents study in Africa, we always have this there's African people might complain that Africa is not good, but the level of study in Africa, the way we are made to study in Africa, you can't compare it to a certain extent to what we face here in Canada. I remember when I was in school here, so many things that I've learned when I was in secondary school were those that were being taught when I was in my postgraduate study here in Canada. So that means that even if you are the least, if you are the dullest in Africa, if you come in here, you might end up shining. So that goes to show that based on this information that we got from Stats Canada, that Africans are actually studying, they are actually getting that bachelor's. So now let us now go to the flip side of it, that when you're done with study, what are the systemic racism that Africans face at work? Well, don't forget that we've seen that Africans study and they get their bachelor's in school. So now let us look, is that bachelor's that they've studied, does that put them at a very good position for them to get a nice job, for them to get promotion when they eventually get those jobs? All right, still based, don't forget that the information I'm giving to you is based on statistics from Stats Canada. Still based on Stats Canada research that was done and was released last year, the national overqualification rate stood at 11%. So when I say overqualification rate, means that you got a job in Canada, but the job you got is not befitting to the level of education that you have. Take, for instance, you have a bachelor's or you have a master's and you're working as a packer or as a picker in a warehouse. So that is a little below what your level of education is. So that's what we mean by overqualification rate. So the overqualification rate in Canada nationally stood at 11%. But overqualification among black communities in Canada, based on research, stood at 16%. This was research that was done last year, stood at 16%. So what does that imply? So that simply implies that, don't forget we're coming from the fact that Africans, they study, they get their bachelor's. So now when they eventually get their bachelor's at the minimum in the university, or they get their master's as the case is, when they eventually go out there to go look for a job, they do not get the job that is befitting to their level of education. I know a few of my friends that in their workplace, they are complaining bitterly that their level, probably they have bachelors, they have masters, they have their postgraduates in Canada here, but the position that they put them in their organization is far below what they expect. At the end of the day, they end up putting the other race above them as their supervisor, as their manager in their place of work. So this is not me fabricating this. I want you to actually watch this video so that you can actually see for yourself that there was a report that was done about this.
The Canadian economy has seen labor force issues as it's re-emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic. But for Canada's black population, workforce problems are seen as systemic. Agape Gasessa learned it firsthand as a teen.
Having to lean on community organizations and social services to be able to navigate and figure my way out in this country was a challenge.
Black Canadians are the most overqualified racialized group when it comes to employment. That according to 2021 census data recently released by Statistics Canada. The average overqualification rate is 11%, but for Black Canadians, it's 16%.
Even when you put in all of the different controls and factors that tend to contribute to differences in jobs and in wages, it does not fully explain these kinds of disparities.
Statistics Canada considers overqualification as people who have reached a bachelor's degree or higher from a post-secondary institution but are working jobs that require a high school diploma. For other racialized groups like South Asians and Latin Americans, Stats Canada noted they had higher overqualification rates because of accreditation issues for degrees from international universities. But for Canada's black population, it didn't matter whether it was a recent immigrant or a settled Canadian. The rate of overqualification remained around 16%.
All right, viewers, I hope you have actually seen the report for yourself to actually collaborate with what I'm saying. So this is more like a clarion call for we blacks in Canada to continue to agitate, to continue to speak. Because if we do not speak about this, nobody is going to speak for us. And that was what led me to actually making this video, so that I can also lend my voice to this, because it is not really good. If Canada is a country that is projecting itself as a country that welcome immigrants, then they should give an ambient and equal playing ground for everybody. This systemic racism that is being witnessed among blacks, among Africa in Canada, should be eradicated. It should go beyond the words of mouth. I mean, you can say whatever you want to say, but actions speak louder than voice. So that Africa in Canada, black community in Canada, will also face the same level playing ground that other communities that white face in Canada, and this systemic racism will be eradicated. Going furthermore to dissect this, there are some jobs in Canada here that you barely find a high representation of blacks in those jobs. Take for instance, when you talk about the Navy, the Customs, the Navy, Customs, Army, when you look at the top hierarchy there, you see few blacks in there. When you look at jobs like firefighters, sometimes, it's very rare for you to see blacks. And even if you see blacks in some of these jobs, you do not see them at the top echelon of those jobs. Because don't forget, the information that we got from Start Canada states that the minimum they get from the university is bachelor's. It puts Africans, it puts blacks in a very strong position for them to get a minimum of bachelor's if they attend university. Get there. Some even have masters, some of who have PhD. So that shows that we should be seeing these Africans, we should be seeing these people in top position in some of these job areas that we're complaining about. So I think the government of Canada should actually do more so that they can actually remove this systemic racism, this tone of racism that blacks witness in Canada, so that once again there will be a level playing ground for everybody. Okay, viewers, I've just said my own. Please, I want to know your own opinion in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this topic that I brought for you today. Have you faced systemic racism if you're in Canada? What's your opinion about this? Let me know them in the comment section. Don't forget, I'm just a YouTuber. I do not know much. Till I see you in my next video, and God, I stay tuned. I still remember my one and only MC Bernardino. See you in my next video. Peace out.